Okay, this is the water cycle. Now, this is the diagram that's in your book, and basically that's all you have to know. You're not going to have to draw out the water cycle, but you need to recognize and understand what's going on during it. Okay, so the whole thing actually starts with atmospheric water vapor. Okay, now this is water that's in a gaseous form floating around in the atmosphere. That's probably one of the biggest wells of water. The other place, of course, is the ocean and the liquid water that's on the ground. All right, but that atmospheric water vapor condenses and forms precipitation. Now, one of the things your book actually doesn't mention that it absolutely should mention is that precipitation actually takes two forms. It comes down as snow, which forms snowpack, which forms glaciers, and it forms rain. Now, the reason I mention the snowpack and the glaciers is because people tend to forget that that's where a significant amount of water comes from. Now, out here on the East Coast where we get significant rain and we don't have significant mountains, all of our water comes from rain and it fills lakes and reservoirs and stuff like that. Out in California, the vast majority of their rivers and their reservoirs are filled by melt-off that comes from the snow that forms during the winter. The winter, there's a lot of snow, they get a lot of good skiing out there, and of course the mountains build up all these layers of snow. And then what happens in the summer, that snow melts and produces water which goes into the rivers and streams and then keeps them supplied with water during the summer. The other issue, and this is where it really comes in, is the Himalayan mountains. Okay, that's another place where there are tons and tons of glaciers, kilotons, megatons, gigatons of glaciers, which all trap waters. It's actually built up over millions and millions and millions of years. Every summer that water off and supplies water to two very, very small, unimportant countries known as China and India. Okay, I hope you caught my sarcasm there. Between the two countries, there are over like 2 billion people who depend on the water that comes from the snowpack and the glaciers of the Himalayan mountains. So that is a significant amount of water. All right? Well, whether it comes from snowpack or rain, most of this water does fall down and then runs off. And it either does one of two things. Either it pools on the ground and it seeps into the ground, okay, or it runs off and it gets into the lakes and the rivers and the streams, and eventually it winds up in the ocean. So, now what happens here? Well, so this is the thing. We have water down in the ocean, okay, or we have water that's in the form of groundwater. Well, the water that's in the form of groundwater is very frequently picked up as plants, and then the plants, through a process known as transpiration, pump the water back into the atmosphere. All right? This is actually another significant thing. For instance, the Amazon River, okay, the Amazon rainforest actually pumps in so much water that they've actually discovered that since they started cutting down the forest there, that the famines and the droughts in Africa, which of course is the direction that the water vapor from transpiration will travel, those areas, the droughts have gotten worse. All right, so doing something in South America is actually impacting Africa. And then the other thing is, of course, the oceans and the other bodies of water, they basically have evaporation occur, and that evaporation then replenishes the atmospheric water. All right, that's how the water cycle works. You should understand how it works. You should be able to kind of read a diagram. I will not ask you to reproduce a diagram